Hi. As you can see, I look pretty good. Probably because I haven't spoken to any naysayers today, and I haven't read the papers either. And maybe that's a good thing. I'm tired of everyone telling me, from my friends, you're not going to see any change in your lifetime or your son's lifetime. From listening to Bill Bratton, who used to be our police chief and was evidently a good police chief in LA, say there's not going to be any gun reform or any other reforms in policing in our lifetime. And that's how people feel. They feel the polarization is so great that both on the right and on the left, nothing will get done. And I can't say that I disagree. On the local level, when I want to have a conversation with just my local district council person, I had to pull a lot of strings in order to get through to her. And that's not even happening until next Tuesday. And the Democratic Party said to me, because I'm a registered Democrat, though I vote my conscience every single election, well, I should go out and petition. And my feeling is, no, sirree, I'm not petitioning unless I see that I'm going to get what I want. And what I want in New York is bail reform, because what I've seen on bail reform shows me that when you do it, it's a service to the community and it increases public safety. How do we know? We know by the statistics. You don't disrupt people's home life. You don't increase the misery of the public, and you don't have to incarcerate more people. We already know there's prejudice in this country, and we know AI is prejudiced. The interesting thing of what we also know is that every problem that we have in America today is solvable. 100%. We don't even have to look outside our country for the answers. All we have to do is change our structure. I think it's time for the independence. Bill Bratton says that's where he's at. He's an independent at this point. And I think that when you say you're a progressive, it's not good. And when you say you're part of the far right, that's not good either. We need a place for those of us who are pragmatic and see structures in institutions. I know that when I worked at Ford Motor Company in the mid to late 70s, I was in charge of one of their global programs. I was responsible for integrating 300 new products into the paint system so that Ford would come out with no corrosion of their steel. Was our steel the best? You bet. Now, for me to get those programs implemented, it came from the top down. I was commended by the Ford Operating Committee. But more than that, it came from the bottom up. So everyone was in agreement. Sure, you can be the best manager in the world, but if you don't have consensus at every level, it's not going to happen. What did I do? I interfaced with mechanical engineering. I interfaced with the design center. I interface with the paint center. I interface with body engineering and research and development. I developed a newspaper. I made managers accountable for due dates. I changed the design of Ford Motor Company steel for cars and trucks. Everyone said, oh, that'll never happen. Once those designers put their design in clay, they're never going to change. Well, I showed them where they could save a hell of a lot of money by putting holes in the steel in strategic places. Not only did we save paint, which was ionic paint and cost millions, but we also had a good system that was now anti-corrosive. Did it take time? It did. It took me probably the entire 3 years I was there. However, everything changed. The paint department changed because it went from 23 competitive entities all across America and Canada to people who cooperated with each other. I had conferences for everyone. I showed them what I intended to do and what the Ford Motor Company was going to implement. I told them what our goals were. I asked them to bring in specific items that they worked on to keep the cars coated with the paint properly. For the first time, people who never spoke to each other and who were in competition 100%, they cooperated. They spoke to each other now. There were no adversaries. Even the plant managers, everyone was on board. And when they couldn't be on board, you better believe it, the paint department was called on account regularly for why there was non-compliance. I came up with standards for every single product that was utilized, 300 of them. And not only that, I already knew from past experience, if you didn't write down where, when, and how you were going to utilize this new product, it never was going to be used. If you said as required, you could forget about it. So, how does that translate to government? It means we got fiefdoms. Fiefdoms in EPA, transportation, whoever's taking care of health and housing, OSHA, you name it. Everything's a fiefdom, and they should all be talking to each other. We got pollution. We already know that pollution doesn't stay here, doesn't stay in the place where it's a hot spot. It migrates, and it causes cancer and emphysema and diabetes and God knows what other diseases. And worse, it contributes to the warming of our entire planet. We can't afford to go more than 1.5 degrees Celsius. I don't even know if I could exist. When I spoke to a young woman today who's in Arizona, she said to me, we exist, but we stay indoors for 6 months. Because I said, I can't take the heat. She said, we can't either. We just stay inside. Well, I got to tell you, I really like walks outside. And it's healthy for all of us to be walking outside. It's not healthy for us to just be indoors all the time. It's hard integrating back into society after the pandemic. And you know what, folks? If we actually had a structure like that in government where people talk to each other and it wasn't a fiefdom, well, we could resolve our pollution problems because we'd come up with the laws that were needed to regulate the fossil fuel, plastic, and any industry that had petroleum, methane, or carbon dioxide gases. because everyone would be on the same page. And maybe we'd have antitrust, and we'd also have a lessening of the subsidies to the fossil fuel industry, and absolutely mandate that they did indeed cap all the leakages that they have in their plants and in their extraction process. It's not right that Port Arthur, Texas, has to have the worst pollution in America, especially since we know that pollution doesn't remain in America. It combines with China, with India, with Russia, with Indonesia, and you name it. It just goes round and round and round, and the less fortunate will die. Same thing whether it's gun control and police reform and mental health services. Today, we can't afford to defund the police any more than they're defunded. I understand that most cities could use more policemen. Policemen, not to have them adversarial, not to look upon the public as the enemy, like you would if you were in Afghanistan, God forbid, or another place in the world where we thought we were fighting an enemy. No, we want them to go into the communities, understand the communities, and get people the help they need. Police officers are not mental health consultants. I liked a district attorney in Suffolk County. I thought he was great because he had the right idea. His community partnered with mental health and social welfare services. The police didn't do counseling for abuse victims. The police didn't necessarily handle addiction problems. No, unless they were giving life-saving drugs on the spot. They were in coordination with EMS and other approved nonprofit or profit organizations that offered the other services. So it's cooperation. It's not that we can't do anything in America. We've taken away a lot of the laws that would have protected us from the unscrupulousness of the corporations in the second Gilded Age. And let's face it, the first Gilded Age was ushered in with a lot of malicious intent. People who saw power, profits, and didn't see their workers at all. And worse, it was the railroads that were in control when the first Gilded Age came about. And it was the railroad CEOs who sat on the boards of the president's cabinet. It was the seamless meshing of corporations and government. And that's what we got today. But I'm talking about the federal government. It's not just them. It's the state government and these 50 fiefdoms that we have. That's not what the founding fathers wanted. We got to get everyone on the same page so that we can get justice, not just law, passed. We need it all. We need to be able to make profits in corporations. We need competitiveness. We need people to be valued as employees. We can do it. And I don't think that I have to or should have to or I want to wait for my grandchildren's children to come about in order to see change. As I heard in the Cattell organization today, when I was listening in on criminal justice reform, one of the guys had a great motto, and his motto was, when the devil's in control of that car, you're not getting a hold of the steering wheel. Not so fast. So my feeling is, this is what I stand for and a hell of a lot more. And it's not the structure that we have today. It's different. But I know from experience, cooperation works. And I know from experience that if you take the egos out of it and you put people in office who can do the job and want desperately to see their communities thrive, we'll get change in my lifetime. And you know what? The world's 7 billion people will thank us for it. So thank you for listening, and God bless you, and I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye now.